Hello. I'm in Beijing. No, I'm not in Beijing. I'm in Heathrow. I'm going to Beijing though. First of all, I'm stopping off at Amsterdam, which is where this flight's going to. And an hour or so after that, I'll be going over to Beijing. That'll take about 13 hours, so not looking forward to that. But it should be fun when I get there. I'm currently just waiting for my flight. Don't know if you can see any planes. Yo. Never mind. I'm going to try and document as much as I can, mainly through photos, but I'll do the occasional video. So, yay! See you in Beijing. Hello, or should I say ni hao? Oh, they're going to hate me over here. Welcome to Beijing. I've been in the country for about 4 hours, if that. Most of it spent waiting for my luggage because it took a while. But I'm here safe and sound. The flights were a bit of a nightmare. The connection flight from Amsterdam, that was late, which meant I ended up having to run for my Beijing flight. But I got on it at the end, hence why you can see a really cool building in the background. That's the Forbidden City. Sorry, that's the entrance for the Forbidden City, that really big building. And the wall behind it goes on for, well, quite a long while, surrounded by a big moat. I'm going to try and go there maybe tomorrow when I feel a bit more fresh. Currently it's, I think, 7 in the morning, but I'm obviously still in UK time, which is 1 in the morning, give or take, and I've not slept, didn't sleep on the flight, so I didn't have the best night's sleep the other day, so I might save that for going in there for another day. But yeah, it's really hot, it's really busy. I've nearly been run over. I saw old men fighting each other with samurai swords, which was quite interesting. Interesting first day. So for the majority of my trip, I stopped at a small hostel called the Happy Dragon Hostel, and it's based in central Beijing, and it's around 20 minutes from the airport via taxi. It's also around a 15-minute walk from the Forbidden City, which is bang in the centre of the city. And to get to it, you have to walk down an alleyway, which is just off a main road. And it's quite a small, cheap hostel, and I chose to have my own room instead of sharing it with other people. And it was a basic room, and it did the job. It was quite nice. However, there was some very strange wallpaper with small cats on. The staff there was really friendly, and they had a breakfast bar which I ate every morning before exploring through the day. However, the best thing, which was a surprise, is that every morning, when you leave, the alleyway turns into a market where the local people, they set up stalls selling anything from clothes to kitchen pans, as well as a variety of fresh foods such as fish, meat, vegetables, and, well, whatever those are. So one of my favourite things to do in Beijing was visiting the many parks spread across the city, and each park I visited was very different from the next. But what struck me the most was how different it was to the city life. In the city, there are hundreds of people just crammed in the streets or in the subways fighting for space, and there's massive modern skyscrapers that make you feel tiny and insignificant. But in the parks, this is a complete contrast. And although the parks are huge, they are in open spaces, meaning you're not crammed with other people. You can walk at your own pace and take in all the sights. And the vast majority have a fee to enter, which is usually between £1 or £2 for the full day, which for me was a complete bargain and well worth paying. And all the money that they make every day goes towards the maintenance of the park. and every park I visited had a wealth of trees, plants, hills, and paths to follow. However, one of the best reasons to visit the parks is to see the people there. In Beijing, there's a trend for elderly and retired people to spend their time at the parks, and they get up to a lot of activities such as dancing, playing music, dancing, sports, dancing, singing, and, well, this. In some parks, they have entertainment for the public or historic buildings hidden away in corners that you can learn about. And some have nice vantage points where you can see for miles and miles. However, the only downside is that most of the time the city is covered in China's infamous smog, which kind of ruins the view. But on one occasion, I managed to get quite lucky and I got a nice view. Now, one of the best parks I went to was called the Temple of Heaven, which, according to my map, is 675 acres and features a temple where back in the day emperors offered sacrifices to the gods. Here I met an American called Jared and his girlfriend Lynn, who actually grew up in Beijing, and she moved over to America and eventually met Jared. And they came back over to meet her parents and to show Jared around the country. And they were the first English-speaking people I had a full conversation with, and they were kind enough to invite me to walk around the park with them. And as Lynn knew the place very well, she acted as a tour guide for me and Jared. And we spent the next few hours wandering around before we said our goodbyes.
Around 7 or 8 days before my first flight out from London, my granddad, Ronnie, he passed away in hospital. And obviously I was very upset just like the rest of the family. And I wasn't too sure if I really wanted to come out to Beijing. 'Cause I was just feeling really down. I didn't know if it would be a good idea. But because I've been planning it for a long time and I put a lot of money into it, my parents convinced me to come over, but they said I should try and find a place that would be a nice place just to think about Ronnie, and I think I found it. You can see in the background there's a hut. It's what I find really special about it is it's based in a park. I don't know if I can pronounce it. I think it's called Beijing Park. It's not far from the Forbidden City, and it's very similar to Hardwick Park, where there's a big river in the middle and you can walk around the whole circumference of it. But if you think of Hardwick Park, how big that is, this is around maybe 15, 20 times bigger. I think it's something like 62 hectares. I don't know if that's the right word, hectares. Anyway, it's a beautiful place, and this little part is completely surrounded. It's just off the trail. You have to follow a small path, and you have to go up a hill and then back down, which is that side. And on that side, I think you can see there's loads of rocks that encompass it, so it's really cut off from everywhere. And just in the middle, we have this hut that's on top of water, and to get to it, you have to follow a little stone bridge. And I first came here literally when I got off the plane. It's one of the first parks I came to, and I was blown away just by how pretty, how beautiful the place is. It's just incredible, really, and it kind of reminds me of my granddad, because he was just such a peaceful guy. Never had a bad bone in him. And this place, just everyone just seems so calm and peaceful. Like there's people who are, so I'm quite high up, there's people down there who are just sitting, just chilling, they're not doing anything, just reflecting on whatever they're thinking about. there's people chatting to each other. When I first came here the other day, there was a guy with a flute just walking around playing, not for anyone, he was just playing to himself, and so I got to listen to him, which was nice. It's a lovely place. So, yeah, just sat here thinking about my granddad. Yesterday I travelled up to a part of the Great Wall of China, which I've completely forgotten. I'll write it down below here. And it was amazing. I mean, it was the really quiet part, which is what I really enjoyed. The main parts of the wall that have been restored and been rebuilt, that's like the really popular part. You can barely walk. I've seen pictures of it, and that's not my cup of tea really. So I went to a really quiet part. What we did is we set off at 6:30 in the morning. We took 3.5 hours to get to this part of the wall, and it was still in really good condition. There were parts where things were falling to bits and you had to kind of divert away, but you were quickly back on trail and it wasn't an issue. And I was put with a group of people that I've never met before. There was quite a few English people, and I got to meet 2 English girls, a woman called Julie, who I spent most of the time with. We kind of buddied up because we were here together, here on our own, so we buddied up. And just the sights were immense. I mean, I put some pictures up now for you, and they're just, it was breathtaking. I don't have any words for it. It's just, yeah, it was great. For me, that's probably one of the best highlights of the whole trip, just going up to the Great Wall. If I had any more time, I would go to one of the other places that's quite quiet, because I could probably do it again, and it was just, it was just amazing. I loved it.
So, for those that know me, will know that I am more into my Indian food rather than Chinese food. However, when I went out there, I made a pact with myself to try and eat as much Chinese food as I possibly could out there to just make full of the experience. And I got off to a really bad start, where on the first day, when I was exploring, after about 3 or 4 hours, I didn't actually feel very hungry, but I thought I should try and just get something in my stomach, as I'd gone a long time without any sleep and without any food. So I was walking down the street and I saw a kind of like a fast food restaurant. So I thought, okay, I'll go in then and see what they have. And when I went in, I went up to the woman behind the till, who unfortunately couldn't speak any English, and as I can't speak any Chinese, it was very difficult to communicate. And everyone else was too busy working and no one else spoke English. So I picked up a menu, had a quick look, and I saw this nice, what looked like a beef dish with rice. There was a drink, there was these little red flakes on top of the beef. I thought, oh, this looks nice. So I just pointed to the picture, and she ordered it for me. As soon as I sat down, 30 seconds later, the food was on my table. It was just like, kind of like McDonald's, with how fast it was served to you and how it was presented. And it looked really nice. So I was given chopsticks and a spoon. Thankfully, I had a spoon because I can't use chopsticks to save my life. So got the spoon, and the moment I put the food on my tongue, I realised what those flakes were. They were very, very hot chilies, and I couldn't eat more than 3 mouthfuls because it just hurt my mouth so much. I really, really can't stand hot food, and it was just, although it was tasty, I just couldn't eat anything. Thankfully, I had a drink with me, so that helped ease the pain. Now, there's lots of street vendors in China. Everywhere you go, especially on the main streets, you'll eventually bump into someone trying to sell you food, and they'll cook it fresh, and honestly, it looks brilliant. And I had to stop myself from eating all the time once I got into the holiday. And not only were the smells and the look of the food brilliant, the price was incredibly cheap. For a full meal from a street vendor, you were paying no more than £1, maybe £1.50, whereas over in England it would cost you at least £4 or £5. And some of the pictures that you can see here are just some examples of it. I didn't get a chance to take lots of pictures of the food, but they are incredible. It's fantastic. However, I was warned before I came on the trip that it might give me an upset stomach if I get food from street vendors. However, thankfully, I was quite lucky and I never had a bad stomach from it, which was nice. However, on the other hand, there were some very weird types of food that they were offering, such as scorpions and centipedes and, well, lots of very strange things. I chose not to try those. Now, one thing I do regret is the amount of Chinese dishes I tried. I did try a few, and one of my favourites was a soup with beef in it, and at the bottom there was very thick rice, and there was noodles as well, and that was very tasty. But overall, I didn't really try as much as I'd have liked. When I got to the last 4 days of my trip, I found a street that was full of foreign restaurants. There were Iranian restaurants, there were Persian restaurants and Turkish restaurants, and I realised that I'd been very frugal with how much I spent over there, and I had about 2/3 of my money left over for the last 4 days, and this was after I had my trip to North Korea and over to the Great Wall. So I decided that every night I would go to one of these restaurants and order a 3-course meal. And by the end of it, I got really, really fat. And it was honestly some of the best food I've ever had. And as you can see from the pictures on here, the food was just amazing. And I think my favourite was the Persian food. I had lamb, and the lamb was just absolutely lovely. It just broke in your mouth. It was very smooth. The taste was very sweet, and I love sweet food. And like I said, I went there every night, 3-course meal, and it was absolutely fantastic.
This morning I got back to Beijing, and I've just been taking it easy today. You can see in the background I'm in a really nice lake. It's a nice park. I think I'm supposed to pay to be in here, and I haven't. We'll see how long this lasts. But I witnessed something pretty cool. Well, not cool, but interesting. Obviously, I've spent all my life in England, and if you see someone walking down the street with bright red hair, you'll glimpse at them and you look away because you don't want to be caught staring at them, make them feel bad or anything. Today in Beijing, I realised that I'm one of the very few non-Asians in China, which might seem very obvious, but as it's like peak season for holidays, I've noticed that there are lots of Asians from other countries coming here, and I do see the odd non-Asian. I've seen a few French people, I've seen a few Finnish people as well, but completely outnumbered, and it's quite interesting to see people do the whole glimpse and then look away at me, because it must be something that they're not used to every day. And I don't mind that, it's fine. But when I was on the subway today, I was stood next to a couple, and the couple were clearly, I don't know what language they were talking in, but they were clearly talking about me. Like they were whispering to each other. Then one of them would glimpse over to me, and then they would smile at each other. They could be taking the mick, but saying how big my eyebrows are, or he needs a shave. But or they could be saying something nice, I don't know. But it was quite strange how close they were, yet I couldn't understand them at all. It's strange being a minority. Not used to it.
So every day on my trip, I decided to visit as many attractions as I possibly could. And to do that, I used Beijing's infamous subway station. And this is very similar to London's underground system, where there's just stations plonked around the whole city and you can get on and off wherever you like. However, one of the main differences with Beijing is that wherever you get on or off, it only costs 20 pence, which was amazing. So literally you could get on one end of Beijing, get off at the other end, even if you change a couple of times to get on different stations, on different tubes, then it would only cost 20 pence, which was fantastic. It meant that I could go anywhere in the city and didn't have to worry about the price. Whereas if I was in London, for example, I would have to worry about the price because it'd be really expensive. And on one day, I decided to visit Tiananmen Square, which, according to Google, is one of the largest city squares in the world. And it is the site for cultural significance where many important events in Chinese history occurred. So I thought I should go there. And it was right next to the Forbidden City. However, these two places were probably the worst part of my trip. Not because of how the place looked, but because there was so many people there. The sheer amount of tourists was just unbearable. To get from one part to the next, you were crammed through small gates. You were crammed like sardines, and the heat didn't help either. It was easily in the mid-30s, and I was constantly drinking water just like everyone else, and they were trying to push through just so they could get through, and it wasn't a nice experience at all.
Who said Beijing was a tourist trap? Oh dear.
However, as you can see by the photos, thankfully the structures, the government buildings, they were really, really pretty, really breathtaking. But it was just a shame that there was just so many people, and I think they could have organised it a bit better. And unfortunately, it was the same for the Forbidden City. On the outside, they were doing structural work, which really let it down. It didn't make it look nice. I'm sure that it needed work doing, but still it didn't look really nice. And when I got inside, even though the sheer size of it was impressive, on the inside there was just far too much open space. There wasn't any visual attractions. You could see different rooms and different objects, which was nice. But again, you were being cramped through. If there was a small alleyway, it was just free for all. You were getting pushed around. But one of the most annoying things was when I went into some of these rooms, every single one was a gift shop. And it wasn't really nice. It didn't really seem like it fitted into the history of the Forbidden City. It just felt as if they're just trying to get all your money off you and then just get you out at the end. However, saying that, there were some nice parts. There were some really old trees there, some really good historical points, which is nice. But I felt as if Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City were probably the worst parts of my trip.
Today, I think it's day 5, maybe 6, I can't remember. But I'm in the Summer Palace, which is this huge park. I think it's 620 hectares. Still can't remember what the right word is, but it's huge. I'm kind of in the middle part, and the building behind me is the actual Summer Palace. And it's really good. It's like so picturesque, and because it's quite elevated, I can see a lot of the buildings out in Beijing. It's really well looked after. I mean, you have to pay to get in. It only costs around £3.50, maybe a little bit more, for the whole place, and it's so nice. I'll try and show you a better shot. I mean, it is quite touristy, but it's nice and open. It's a lot better than the Forbidden City, in my opinion.
One of the best parts of the Summer Palace, which I wish the Forbidden City had, is that scattered across this massive park, which had lots of really interesting buildings in, and lots of open space where you didn't get crushed or you didn't get packed with other people, is that dotted around they had lots of entertainment. They had lots of things to see. For example, there were professional dancers there, as you can see here. There were also professional singers, people selling their music, and it was just really nice, just that kind of cutting up each part of the park. You could go from one part and you'd see this, then you move on to the next part, then you see something else. It was really nice. So on another day I went to Beijing Zoo, and although I woke up really tired, I thought I'd try and make the most of it and to see as many animals as I could. And for the most of it, I saw lots of really cool animals, such as lots of different types of bird, and I saw lots of different types of monkey. I went on a boat ride in the zoo, because as most of the other places are in Beijing, this was huge and it had its own moat system and a river running through it. So I decided to go on that. Got some nice food there as well. However, as it was really hot, I thought I'd just take it nice and relaxed and see some of the main attractions of the zoo. So I thought I'd go to see one of the tigers, which was asleep. I thought I'd try and go see a lion, that was asleep. And then I thought I'd go see the main attraction of the zoo, which was the panda. And well, that was asleep too. So unfortunately, I didn't really get to see them in their prime when they were awake, but it was still a nice experience and I got some nice photos from it.
Oh, they're going for it. Fight. Fight.
看太牛逼了。
I went to visit the Beijing Olympic Park on one of the last few days of my trip. And again, it was a massive wide open space, and what really impressed me was the structures there. I went to visit the Nest, which is the main Olympic stadium, and it looked absolutely fantastic. I never had a chance to go in, but I managed to walk to the side of it, and it was absolutely huge and really impressive. I also went past the swimming stadium, and I went past a few other places, and it was really impressive, and I'd really enjoyed my time there. Okay, so a couple of other things that happened on the trip. Some of them good, some of them not so good. One, for example, is the taxi ride for when I first landed in Beijing, going to the hostel, which only took around 15-20 minutes, and apparently it would only cost me around £15, maybe £20. However, this one ended up costing me over £50. Thankfully, I had loads of money with me, and I ended up bringing over half of it back with me back into England, so it wasn't an issue. But what happened was I fell for a scam. The taxi driver, before we set off, pointed a card to me, and which had lots of very expensive prices on, and because I was a little bit out of my element and I just wanted to get into the city, I stupidly said yes to his prices, and it only occurred to me what actually happened when I paid and then when he left. So I paid roughly £50, but in the end, when I came back, I brought home over half of my money, so it's not like it affected me that much, but I did feel a little bit silly. I also noticed the driving in China is very chaotic, and it's not as structured as the UK driving. People would just barge in and try and get into any lane they could, even if there was loads of queuing. Well, China's quite famous for not queuing anywhere, and it's the same for their driving. So I had several heart attacks just on my first trip into the city. On my way to the tourist meeting for my trip to North Korea, I bumped into a woman who was on a main street, and there was not many people around, and she was probably middle-aged woman, probably 40s, 50s, and she was very well dressed, and she started talking to me, and although there was a little bit of distance between us, she was clearly talking to me, and she kind of wormed her way over to me, but she was whispering really quietly, and she kind of wanted to whisper something into my ear, which I let her, and I thought, hold on, this is a little bit strange. I'm going to keep an eye on my bag and my pockets. I knew where everything was. I was keeping a tight grip on everything, and she was trying to whisper something to me, and she was talking in Chinese. She didn't say a word of English, but she just kept talking, and she wouldn't let me go. Thankfully, I managed to get rid of her. She was still trying to wave over to me to come back, but I had no idea what she wanted, and it was a very surreal experience. But I came away with all my money, and she didn't steal anything, so I'm pretty grateful for that. I also got to experience the squatting toilets, which are quite infamous in China, and they're pretty much like public toilets, except for what we think of a toilet. They use basically a hole in the ground, and you do your business in there, and that's it. The very surreal experience about it is not just because you have to squat for it, but there is no door on the toilet. You have a small barrier between you and the next, so you get some sort of privacy, but there were some urinals just in front of me, so if someone wanted to use them, there'd be lots of eye contact, and thankfully that never happened. I only used them once or twice, but it was such a weird experience. When I moved over to the second hostel near the railway, one evening I went for a drink in the social part of the building, and I got talking to a guy called Zach, who worked in the hostel. He lives in China, and he played guitar, and he was actually learning guitar there, and he had this really beaten up guitar. The strings were really old. It was, the neck of the guitar was broke. It was slightly wonky, and it was, you wouldn't pay any money for this guitar, but he was trying to learn on it. He had a few sheets with him. He was learning by himself. He had a few things off the internet, and I said to him that I taught guitar and I'll give him a few tips. And we spent about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, just talking over chords, different music that we enjoy. I tried showing him Smoke on the Water, and he just about got it. But that was a definite highlight as well.
Okay, so it's Wednesday, and that means it's my last full day here in Beijing. I fly out tomorrow morning at 1, so I won't get a chance to explore anything. I'm going to be heading to the airport later on tonight, so I thought I'd just take a nice chilled out day and travel up to a couple of the parks. Currently I'm at Yanming Wan Park. Had to use my map there to work out what it was. It's really nice. It's absolutely huge, just like the other places, and so much so when you enter the park, to get to the ruins, which is what you can see behind me, you have to get on a boat that takes you all the way up, and that took 20 minutes at quite a fast pace, so that's how big this place is. And it's just breathtaking, just like all the other parks. I mean, I've really enjoyed seeing all the different places here. It's just nice to see how chilled out everything is and how beautiful the whole parks are. After this, in the next hour or two, I'm going to head over a short distance to Summer Palace, which is surprisingly even bigger than this place, and that looks beautiful as well. And then after that, I'm gonna head over back into the city, the main part of the city, grab some food, just chill out, and then head over to the airport. You might have noticed I've got a different hat. It's got a panda on, fluffy ears. I think I look fabulous. I lost my other hat. I think I left it on the table. It only cost a couple of £, so I thought I'd treat myself. But yeah, this place is lovely. Check out the ruins. They're blurry, but you can check them out. I'm really loving it here. It's nice. Okay, so I've just landed in Amsterdam. The flight from China ran really smoothly. We didn't fall behind on the time. There was no problems with the flight, so that was really nice. And now I've got around 30-40 minutes before my flight to London. It's currently 5:30 in the morning, give or take, and my body clock is just completely thrown off. It feels like it's, I think, 10 o'clock ahead of time. That's Beijing time anyway, so yeah, very little sleep on the plane as well, so I think next couple of days I'm just going to be sleeping. But I was trying to think of kind of highlights of the trip and anything that really stood out, and a lot of things did. I think that's probably the best thing. There was not one thing that was the best. Everything was just so good. For example, the sights, like the Great Wall of China, that was brilliant. Just walking around the streets and seeing how they're how the normal people just got on with their lives. The parks were amazing. There were so many, and they were just so big. Some of them as big as Ferry Hill, the town that I live, literally as big as that. And they're just well looked after. The food was amazing. Definitely completely different to the Chinese food that we have at home. It's not like the takeaways at all. So that was cool. And I think one of the main things that stood out was the people. I met so many travellers along the way. Some of them I talked to for 5 minutes, some of them for 2 or 3 hours. Some of them I walked around with and we explored the place. It was really nice to get to know them. I also met one guy a couple of nights before I left, and he was learning guitar. He worked at the hostel that I was staying at, and he was playing a beaten up guitar. I mean, the strings were rubbish and the guitar was broken. He was trying to work on some chords, and I gave him some tips, and he seemed to be really into it. So that was nice. Yeah, I just think that the whole trip's been a big success. I'm really pleased that I came over to Beijing. Same with North Korea, I'm glad I went. I thought I was a bit nuts to go over by myself, and I think everyone else at home is as well. But it worked out well. Came back with all my limbs and my fingers, so success. But yeah, I think the first thing I do when I go home is sleep and then shave. Yeah, so I'm getting a good old beard going on here, and monobrow. Can't be having that. So yeah, success. Hello from North Korea? Seriously?